Hello, my friends. Dennis Prager here on the day before Christmas. I welcome you to the show. I am truly delighted to have this guest on, James Freeman. James Freeman is assistant editor of the Wall Street Journal's editorial page and author of the famous Best of the Web column at the Wall Street Journal. He has a new book written with Maria Bartiromo, The Cost, Trump, China, and American Revival. And it is exactly about all of them. It is up at DennisPrager.com. James Freeman, before I even say hello to you, I just want you to know that behind your back, I speak about the Wall Street Journal editorial page and opinion pages as pillars of American civilization. How's that for an opening?
Wow, thanks. Well, it's an honor and a privilege to join you. We do use the Prager University videos in our household oftentimes with the instruction of important truths about civilization. So this is quite an honor. Thank you.
Well, great. I'm very happy to hear that. How old are your children?
So they range. I've got youngest is in 7th grade, and then a couple in college, and one 10th grader.
I am curious, if I may, because I talk to authors about a lot of things. So I'm just curious. I tell people, I have for decades, sending your child to college is playing Russian roulette with their values. So what do, in addition to, and I'm delighted, PragerU videos, what have you done to inoculate your college kids?
Oh, thanks. I suppose what we all do in terms of trying to transmit values around the dinner table and in everyday life, it is a challenge. I think in this awful year, maybe one of the silver linings is perhaps you have a lot of people rethinking how education is delivered, and maybe this opens people up to new ideas about how you get the value, whether it's distance learning. Maybe it doesn't have to be from a traditional university, but it's something I think about a lot because obviously we see these outrages on campus and the cancel culture and so forth. I was just actually talking this week to a friend who spent a lot of time in government and in academia, and he says in the executive branch of government, you actually have a lot more you do even as a tenured professor on I guess what most people would call an elite campus. And I think that is that may be the largest problem in the country when you think about the role educational institutions play and the just kind of smothering politicization going on there. I mean, you report on it a lot. I try to as well. It's a challenge. I don't know. I guess that was a long answer to the question. I don't know. I guess we'll learn in years to come whether I get it right or not.
Basically, you're telling me you gave it your best shot, and now the ball is in God's court. No, you're very real. I agree with you. It is what it is. So your book is about a lot of things, and obviously China. So my field of study was the Soviet Union. I learned Russian. I was the Russian Institute at Columbia University. So I did this at the height of the Cold War. The Soviet Union was clearly the enemy. And I must say I now feel that China is an enemy or the enemy, putting Iran aside. But China has more power. Is that your take?
Well, I don't know if I'd use the term enemy. I struggle with that because it is run by an old-fashioned communist dictatorship. Obviously, it's allowed elements of freedom in terms of its market economy has grown, and those benefits have yielded enormous, or it's yielded enormous benefits to people in China and around the world. But part of what we go through in the book is you mentioned the Soviet Union. We've gotten into this habit of being very economically engaged with China, even though the premises have turned out to be false. So you go back to when we first decided to have relations with China in the 70s, it was basically because Nixon saw them as a strategic counterweight to the Soviet Union, thought it would be helpful to encourage animosity between Moscow and Beijing. He also obviously saw political benefits to be seen as having a diplomatic victory. Then, over time, the Soviet Union goes away, so that reason isn't really there. Then we kind of settled into, for decades, this idea that if we did more trade, did more commerce, more business in China, it would lead to political freedom, the rule of law, all the reforms we want to benefit them and us. And it hasn't turned out that way. I think oftentimes in history, capitalism is a liberating force, but in China, I think we have to acknowledge that all of that engagement has not led to political reform, to the rule of law, the things that would truly benefit the Chinese people. And so I think this is where Donald Trump deserves a great deal of credit in challenging the Washington consensus. And it doesn't mean that tariffs are cost-free, but it does mean that he was, I think, correct on the central point, which is we have kind of been going on automatic pilot in this belief that our engagement is leading to reform, and it hasn't.
Do you think China, if you had a bet on it, if you were betting, even if you were not a betting man, if I forced you to bet, what would you bet with regard to China invading Taiwan?
I think a lot depends on the message from our government over the next several months.
Then they'll invade.
Well,
you answered my question.
The
message from the Biden government is not going to be the message from the Trump government.
Yeah, it's it's a scary time. It's obviously been heartbreaking watching what's happening to the people of Hong Kong.
It can make you cry.
Yeah, a modest bit of good news. Jimmy Lai has been granted bail there, but the big picture, this is an old-fashioned communist regime, and I think this is one of the great miscalculations of Joe Biden over his time in government, is not recognizing what the rise of Xi Jinping meant. It was his job in the Obama administration to be the liaison with China, and specifically with Xi, and he saw him as a friend, a guy he could do business with, and just completely misread that this was an old-school communist who really wanted to reassert party control over every phase of Chinese life. We talk about his persecution of people in terms of religious liberty, political liberty, but he's also tightening the screws on entrepreneurs there. Basically demanding the party have a greater role in companies and forcing more business to state-owned enterprises. It's really a kind of a disaster in the making for freedom, and I hope it doesn't extend to Taiwan, but you have to be concerned.
Well, he's doing what NASDAQ is doing to companies.
Well,
here's a set of laws that you will be governed by. What is it? You have to have X number.
That might be a little harsh on NASDAQ.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, it is harsh on NASDAQ. As my listeners know, without dark humor, I would currently be under constant therapy.
Yeah, where would we be? That's right.
That's exactly right. All right, let me remind everybody, James Freeman, who is my listeners know what a compliment this is. He's a fighter.
Thanks.
Yeah, you are. Assistant editor of the Wall Street Journal's editorial page. And his new book is The Cost, Trump, China, and American Revival. We are going to address all of those in a moment. You are listening to the Dennis Prager Show. Wish you all a Merry Christmas.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Huge number of Democrats who believe that the Russians changed the outcome of the election in 2016, but they're just flabbergasted that Donald Trump is daring to suggest that this election might have been rigged or might be fraudulent. No matter what the Russians may have done, I say to my friends who are listening to the program, the Democrats, no matter what the Russians have done or the Chinese have done or the Iranians have done, and clearly they've all have tried to interfere with our elections, it pales in comparison to the interference, and I put that in quotes, by the mainstream media that you guys gobble up. Hunter Biden. New York Post breaks this story days before the election. This is a bombshell. And it isn't because Hunter Biden did anything illegal necessarily. It's because Joe Biden has for months denied knowing anything whatsoever about his son's business, let alone that he met with any of his son's colleagues, business associates. And it turns out Tony Bobulinski, the longtime business associate of Hunter, who broke with Hunter, goes public and says he met with Joe Biden for some time. And also worked with Joe Biden's brother. And when he said to Joe Biden's brother, look, isn't this kind of dicey for you to be involved in something like this? Joe Biden's brother said, we have plausible deniability. So this story broke. And what did the mainstream media say? They said this is Russian disinformation. You have the CEO of Twitter suppressing the story, admitting he suppressed the story. And he admitted they shouldn't have done it. But the story was spiked.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
The rich are richer. Google and Facebook are more powerful than ever before. Normal people have had their voice suppressed. Anywhere between 250 to 275 to 300,000 people have died from the Chinese coronavirus. The lockdowns have killed dreams, ambitions, and human beings through suicide and other means. How did all of this happen? Aristotle famously said that we are the speaking beings. If we do not have the ability to speak and communicate, we are no different than the animals of the wild. Aristotle was a scientist. Some would call him an empiricist. It's not a perfect categorization, but he cared about what was happening in the natural world, where Plato cared about what was happening in the clouds, the space of ideas. Aristotle cared a lot about what was actually provable and based in reason. That's why he is called just the philosopher in a lot of traditions. So when you're not able to speak, when you're not able to spread ideas, don't be surprised when your entire civilization starts to unravel. So when you're not able to say, hey, I think hydroxychloroquine might actually work, and all of a sudden your YouTube account gets shut down, your Twitter account gets shut down, your Facebook page gets shut down, you get fired like Dr. Simone Gold. These Soviet-style tactics that are used suppress speech. So what ended up happening? There was a massive PR push done by some great doctors, Dr. Erickson,
Hello, everybody. Dennis Prager here. I just want to remind you about Pure Talk. When I first was asked to promote the product, which is $20 a month, unlimited talk, unlimited text, I assumed you would get something second rate. So I actually got a phone, signed up, and it's just as good as my regular service. $20 a month, unlimited text, unlimited talk. Just dial on your phone pound 250, pound 250, and say Dennis Prager. James Freeman, you may not know this, but whenever that happens, I think if only my parents knew that I became a promo code. The joy that it would have brought them. One son is a professor of medicine, and the other is a promo code.
Well, we can all aspire to that. I haven't reached that level yet.
No. There are more professors of medicine.
Congrats.
I sometimes I feel for my guests. They have no idea what's coming next.
That's good. You got to stay agile. It's good.
That's right. That's exactly right. James Freeman, God bless him, is assistant editor of that terrific Wall Street Journal editorial page. And he has a new book, The Cost, Trump, China, and American Revival. So, if we are in essential agreement about the challenge, and I'm using a very mild term for what I think it is, of China, specifically the Chinese Communist Party that runs it with an increasingly iron fist. Why is there any reason to believe that Joe Biden would be tough on China?
It's a concern, and this rumor or possibility that he's going to invite former Disney CEO Bob Iger to be the ambassador to China is not a signal exactly that right. He is going to be tough. More the opposite.
Yep.
So it is a concern. I think if you want to look on the bright side, I think the Trump experience has kind of recalibrated the Washington consensus a bit. I think Trump has really won the intellectual argument on China. Not that tariffs work everywhere, but that this is not a friendly regime. It's not friendly to the liberty of the people of China or the larger region there. And I think there is, even among what you might call the globalist elitist crowd, a recognition that the United States has to demand more from China. Even Hank Paulson, former Goldman Sachs CEO, is kind of Mr. China engagement. He has said that they have not lived up to their promises in terms of the trade relationship. They've done very little, if anything, to stop the theft of American inventions. So I think you would hope that perhaps for political reasons, the Joe Biden you get post-Trump might be tougher than the Joe Biden you got as vice president. And look, if this is a competition, the Trump economic policy has put the U.S. in a pretty good position here. I know Biden is kind of talking now as if there's sort of this huge disaster that he will face when he comes into office, and that we will need some massive government interventions to rescue the economy. The fact is, the table is set for a really strong rebound next year, especially with this amazing Operation Warp Speed triumph with the vaccines now rolling out, something on the order of 8 million doses distributed this week. The United States, I think, thanks in large part to Donald Trump, is going to be in pretty good shape as Joe Biden takes over. And,
right, but Joe Biden just announced that our darkest hours are ahead.
Yeah, it's odd because he took the vaccine on Monday, which shows that much of what he said during the campaign was wrong, that Donald Trump did oversee a safe and quick vaccine approval. So he should understand and therefore change his rhetoric as well, that the vulnerable population is going to be inoculated largely over the next several weeks. Much of this work is going to be done by the time he's taking the oath of office. So there is not a crisis, and he can thank Donald Trump for that in terms of there's not a great need for government intervention next year. Not that obviously he and a lot of people who work for him don't want one, but I guess this gets back to the Georgia Senate races, right? If there's Republican control of the Senate and so not much is happening in terms of big policy, the United States is primed for pretty robust economic growth, which is ultimately the source of our power.
Georgia is a big if, which I find incredible to even say that to you, but it's a big if. So talking about the election, I'm not happy to ask you, and I have no agenda other than my respect for you. What do you think really happened, count-wise?
Well, I mean, we've had the process, and the Electoral College has voted, and Biden is the winner, and he's going to be inaugurated, I would expect. I think I understand what bothers a lot of people, and it bothers me that you did see changes in process and at times not changes enacted by legislators as the Constitution demands. Ron Johnson had a hearing last week in the Senate, and Senator Paul pointed out that there have been a lot of court cases, but most of them have been essentially procedural questions. So in the absence of a whole lot of reporting, it would have been nice to have some of the claims or more of the claims tested in court. But I do think at this moment, and by the way, it's a good thing that judges don't have a lot of power to set aside election results. So that's I think a strength. You don't want judges to easily be able to throw out the results of an election, and I think the president has given us a lot of good federal judges, so I trust that process. But I think, like a lot of people, I would like to know more about the irregularities, and maybe we'll learn more as time goes on.
Well, I hope we speak again, and I want to remind my listeners that his very important new book, The Cost, is out. The subtitle, Trump, China, and American Revival. Next time we'll talk about American Revival. James Freeman, whatever you celebrate, I wish you that it be merry.
You too. Thanks so much, Dennis. Great to be with you.
Thank you.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
And a man who had been a Democrat, really, in every meaningful metric that term provides, became a Republican president, the likes of which not even I expected. Nobody expect. Nobody. You cannot find for me right now a piece of writing, an interview from 2016 in which anyone stated this will be a president more conservative than Ronald Reagan. Nobody said that. But it's true. Oh, how true. Pick any issue. Whether it's national security, staring down China, giving a green light to the Pentagon to target and kill more than 200 Russian mercenaries on the soil of Syria trying to destabilize the Middle East, building the wall, 400 miles of it already. or keeping our promise to bring our troops back from endless, stupid wars. A man who was even more pro-life than the great Ronald Reagan, the first president ever to address the March for Life, to talk at the March for Life of the sanctity of the unborn child. A man who even in the most technical, philosophical avenues of conservatism was without parallel.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
This morning, Ben Domenech of the Federalist was on Fox and Friends saying it's over. And then I talk to you and I talk to other people and I hear them say, no, it's in fact not over. Is this just wishful thinking on our parts? Are we grasping at straws in these several scenarios?
I think it's reasonable for us to prepare ourselves for the possibility of a Joe Biden administration. But I am not willing to concede that that needs to happen until we have chased down every last bit of transparent truth that can be found here. And so I think we need to kind of walk with the wisdom that it may not go the way we want it to go, but I think we need to fight for transparency, truth, and integrity in the process. And I don't think that most Americans have a problem with that conflict inside their hearts. That first and foremost, we get to the bottom of this. And let's say everything goes worst case scenario. And just remember this about Ben, good old Ben. Love the Federalist, great website. He's married to Meghan McCain, who just by nature of who she is, has a certain predisposition about Trump that probably permeates their marriage on some level. At the same time, it is vital that even if Joe Biden were to end up being sworn in on January 20th, that the work that Sidney Powell is doing, that the work that the Justice Department and the Director of National Intelligence is doing, that the special counsel that may or may not be
That's a happy song for our time. Needed. Hi, everybody. Dennis Prager here. So, Joe Biden has announced that things will get much darker. Do we have the audio of that? You want to play that, please? What steps would they be? Does anyone know? It's like Nixon had a peace plan for the Vietnam War, and it never quite materialized. Is that a fair analogy?
I'm not sure. We actually did have a peace plan.
He actually did have a peace plan, but it didn't produce peace? I mean, leave? Oh, yeah. Well, the negotiations, which were then overturned by the Democrats. That's fair. You're right. Right, but what are the steps? See, I never. What are those steps? Is he going to force Florida to close down? Read my column from yesterday. the Sovietization of California, how I dreaded coming back to California from Florida, where people are far freer than in this state. Yes, that's right. I was wrong on the Nixon thing. In fact, you could all see how wrong I was by watching the late Bruce Hershenson's video for PragerU. It's one of the most educational 5 minutes. No, it's not 5 minutes. Is it a 5-minute video? Yeah, that's right. He was a great man. I miss him. So I apologize to Richard Nixon. It was. I so know the results of what the Democrats did that I conflated it with the peace plan. Anyway, I'd like to know what Joe Biden wants to do. What will confront it.
We'll form a committee, for sure.
Well, he'll just call for more masks and more lockdown. What is it? 80% of Americans now wear masks. How has it helped? See, the beauty of the masks and the lockdown people is no matter what happens, they say they're right. If a lot of people die, they say, oh, a lot more would have died without the lockdown, without smothering kids' lives with no school, without ruining many homes that can't handle being together all the time, without putting vast numbers of people into bankruptcy. So there you go. We're great. It's so the easy way out. Stop all commerce, or nearly all commerce. Don't go anywhere. Stay home. Ruin your lives so that we can save lives. Get it? That's the motto of these people. Ruin the lives of others. After all, what is it? Dr. Birx? She had to go to her Delaware vacation home. People with vacation homes are the people who advocate putting people with no vacation homes out of their homes. The selfishness of the elite, of the Bill Gates of the world, these people have no idea what it is like to own a restaurant. No idea. Their ability to empathize is zero. The rest of you peons, you can go broke. But we, geniuses, will tell you to do nothing. Can't eat outdoors at a restaurant. 2 days ago, I was on an airplane, inches from another person eating without a mask. Why? No one has ever answered me why that is allowed. But of course, I know the answer. Because Delta Airlines is important. In this case, it was JetBlue. Delta Airlines is important to the Democrats, to the left. Because it's crony capitalism on the left. The little guy who runs a restaurant, he's a piece of crap. That's how the left views him. In fact, he's a nuisance because he's probably a Republican. And he's an entrepreneur. And he believes in capitalism. The guy who owns a restaurant is a piece of crap to the Democrats and to the folks at the CDC. But Delta, American, United, you guys, of course. By the way, I totally support eating on airplanes. Alan Estra is writing a small pamphlet on how to sip coffee for 3 hours. Huh? And eat nuts. I forgot that, yes.
Relief factor.
You know, relief factor is so powerful that it is with me at all times anywhere I go in the world. And if you have any ache other than nerve, joint, muscle, please try it. In 3 weeks, you'll know if it works. $19.95 to try it for 3 weeks at relieffactor.com, 800-500-8384.
Trending now on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
I'm so tired of grievance, Matthew. You're just not mad at anybody except one moment with your mom. Were you aware of that when you were writing this?
I mean, I've got my grievances, but I've learned to move on from. If I can't be constructive with them, I've learned to move on. I mean, even the deal with my mom, we had a grievance for 8 years, but I knew that we were going to mend our fences and come back together. I just didn't know when, and it took 8 years.
Did you not get a role that you really wished you'd gotten? I mean, that you still think about to this day?
No, Hugh, I've got to be honest. I'm pretty fortunate in everything that I passed on. I'd have no regret on anything I passed on. There was a movie that I did love that I was offered that I said no to, but I loved the movie, and that was L.A. Confidential.
Oh.
Curtis Hanson directed. It was a great movie. And that came to me right after I got famous of The Time to Kill. And so I write about it in the book. That after that weekend of Time to Kill opened, all of a sudden I was being offered everything. Whereas 2 days before Time to Kill opened, I wasn't getting offered much of anything. And so I had, in my, maybe in the affluence of scripts that were coming my way, I remember reading that and thinking it's really good, but I just don't have to do it. But then I saw the movie and I was like, ooh, that was a really good one.
Well, I'd be amazed if someone in your position doesn't have at least one that you wish you could get back.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
What do you make of a city like Minneapolis, Minnesota, that slashed the police budget by millions of dollars last night? It was a unanimous vote. These kooks originally voted to abolish the police department altogether. I'm going to give you some numbers, because this is very real here in Georgia, too. How pro-police do you think Raphael Warnock is? How pro-police do you think John Ossoff is? How pro-police do you think today's Democrats are? In Minneapolis, where we have a lot of listeners, here are some numbers.
Hi, everybody. I want to remind you that I plan to take a cruise, go on a cruise with you in June of next year, London to Iceland. And all my cruises sell out, so I'm just giving you advance notice. The banner of the cruise is at DennisPrager.com.
Special rate ends at
Oh, there's a special rate?
yeah, it
Ends when?
in January.
January 1st?
No, 3rd, I think.
January 3rd? Oh, I didn't even know that. This is special rate till January 3rd. January 3rd is my brother's birthday, and we figured that would be the right day to do it. Yep. Can't wait. Did you hear the story, folks, of the Dalton School in New York City? So it's. Do you know it costs as much as a major university? Send my kid to an elite school. Do you know there was never a molecule in me that thought I needed to send my kids to elite schools? It's really something. I just cared about their character. I didn't care about their grades. I know I was an abnormal parent. I know that because I remember how others looked at me. In the long run, I turned out right, and I think that most people would agree. New York Post. One of New York City's poshest private schools is in an uproar over an anti-racist manifesto signed by dozens of faculty members with a sweeping list of demands. Do you know what this whole anti-racism thing is about? People looking for a cause. That's all it is. These are soulless human beings who need to fill their soul with some belief that they're really making the world better. That's all it is. There's so little racism in the United States that they have to invent it. All of this is invented. Ibram Kendi, ex-Kendi, just invents nonsense. Or the woman who writes about, what is it, white fragility. Yeah, Beverly, no, it's not. Okay, can't. It is D'Angelo. The Dalton School, which boasts stars Anderson Cooper, Christian Slater, and Claire Danes as alumni. Oh, now I understand why you'd want to send your kid to the Dalton School. Look at the alumni. Robin D'Angelo, yes, is wrestling with 8 pages of proposals to overhaul the staffing, curriculum, and treatment of black students. Yearly tuition for grades K-12 at the Upper West Side institution. Are you ready, folks? This is a high school. $54,000. Actually, $54,180 a year. The wide-ranging faculty demands include 1. Hiring 12 full-time diversity officers. Wow. Now you know where your tuition money will be going. 12 full-time diversity officers? I don't know what they do. And multiple psychologists to support students, quote, coping with race-based traumatic stress. There are students at the Dalton School with race-based traumatic stress. These kids are really fragile, and they will never grow up. They are teaching them at the Dalton School to feel that they are a separate part of American society and to be angry for $54K a year. 2, paying the student debt of black staffers upon hiring them. Okay. 3, requiring courses that focus on black liberation and challenges to white supremacy. That's what you'll be getting at the Dalton School. Compensating any student of color who appears in Dalton promotional material. You hear that? Abolishing high-level academic courses by 2023 if the performance of black students is not on par with non-blacks. Good. I hope they do all of this. I really do. I hope the school disintegrates. I truly do. I wish it ill. These pompous, humanity-suppressing human beings. The damage they're doing to black students is incalculable. Incalculable. So you hear that? No more high-level academic courses for your $54,000 if black students are not on par with non-blacks. So the issue is not raising blacks to compete properly in high-level advanced academic courses. No, it is that you abolish the academic courses. I think it's great. Requiring anti-racism statements from all staffers. This is the Sovietization of society. Can you imagine if we would have asked all staffers to make an anti-communist statement? Or that they affirm Judeo-Christian principles? But you can do it on the left. There is no limit because leftist means totalitarian. Overhauling the entire curriculum, reading lists, and student plays to reflect diversity and social justice themes. You can't put on a regular play. Why would anybody send their child there? Oh, okay. So you want your child to get indoctrinated, not educated. Wow. And finally, divesting from companies that, quote, criminalize or dehumanize black people. A lot of companies been doing that recently. 1-8-PRAGER 776.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
What do you make of a city like Minneapolis, Minnesota, that slashed the police budget by millions of dollars last night? It was a unanimous vote. These kooks originally voted to abolish the police department altogether. I'm going to give you some numbers, because this is very real here in Georgia, too. How pro-police do you think Raphael Warnock is? How pro-police do you think John Ossoff is? How pro-police do you think today's Democrats are? In Minneapolis, where we have a lot of listeners, here are some numbers that I want to share with you. There have been 532 gunshot victims so far this year. 532. More than double the same period a year ago. Carjackings are up 331% from the same period last year. They've had hundreds of carjackings in the streets of Minneapolis. Violent crimes have surged to 5,100 crimes. And what did Minneapolis City Council do? Unanimously voted to slash the Minneapolis Police Department's budget by $8 million. Supposedly, they'll take the money and funnel it to other city services, including mental health teams and violence prevention programs, as they try to, quote, transform police.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Larry Elder Show.
What could we have done to change the outcome? Now, what the Democrats did was to use the coronavirus as an excuse to loosen election rules, to make it easier and easier for people to vote, make it easier and easier for election fraud to be committed. And many of the things that they did were perfectly legal, underhanded but perfectly legal. Now, the previous election cycle, the Republicans lost 4 seats in Orange County, a county that used to be reliably Republican, got wiped out in Orange County, largely because the Democrats employed a tactic known as ballot harvesting. Legal, underhanded, but it allows votes to be turned in later on if you've assisted a voter in filling out his or her ballot. Now, obviously,
Okay, let me finish with the Dalton School, a premier school, $54,000, 180 salary. I made a mistake. It's not a high school. It is a high school and elementary school. What did I say? You're right. Tuition. Oh, the salaries, I'm sure, are much higher than that. The tuition is $54,180. K through 12. It is Manhattan and such places are living the biblical verse, a land that devours its own inhabitants. And it brings me joy because it shows on occasion there is justice in this world, as these white leftists find that what they put all their money in is ruining their children. Now, some of them want their children ruined because they don't think it's ruined. They think it's just enlightened. 50% of all fundraising dollars should go to New York City public schools if Dalton is not representative of the city in terms of gender, race, socioeconomic background, and immigration status by 2025. So bye-bye all you whites in Manhattan with kids who want to get their kids in Dalton. I think it's awesome. I think it's great. I support all this. I think it's great. I support the clarity. I love clarity. And if the left is ruining our schools, it is very important for parents to know that. Sources told them that Johnston, the blogger who made this public, Dalton kids were made to watch a PBS video called Being 12, in which, quote, white kids are shamed for the sin of their skin color and told they are complicit in perpetuating racism. That's so great. PBS, public funds support the Pravda on TV. A Dalton fourth grade play, featured a role for a racist cop, Johnston reported, adding that the faculty petition includes a demand that every school play have anti-racist narratives. I'm told even To Kill a Mockingbird is out these days. It's a white man trying to save a black man. Can't have that sort of racial paternalizing. The rich parents play the game. They go along with every progressive fad conjured up by the administration and faculty. Many embrace them. That's right. But finally, the Dalton parent who spoke to the New York Post predicted that 30 to 40% of parents of kids in the class of 2025 will pull them out of the school and transfer them as a result of the manifesto. That is the only answer to what the left is doing to society. Leave it. Create a wonderful, open, happy society as an alternative to the left.
Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
Is that 2020 will really go down as the year that the most powerful people on the planet, the people that have the most money, the most influence, the most access to capital, that control the most powerful companies, they tried to make America in their image, and they largely succeeded. This is a hard thing for us to admit. It's a hard thing for us to admit that the masters of the universe, the masters of Menlo Park, if you go back in January, all the way fast forward to today, just in 2020, they pulled off a decade of transformation in 11 months. Think about where we were back in January. Critical race theory, BLM Incorporated, were considered radical movements and radical pieces of thought. Not at Google, though. At Google and at YouTube and at the masters of Menlo Park, they considered critical race theory to be a religious text. They considered Herbert Marcuse and Angela Davis to be what I would view Isaiah and Elijah, prophets of what is to come, of some form of Hegelian dystopian nightmare. The country was not as digitized. Donald Trump was experiencing one of the greatest economies in American history, if not the greatest economy in American history.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Last week on Sunday, you had a Republican judge in Michigan say to the Giuliani team that a third-party audit could go forward in Anne Arundel County. Why is that important? Anne Arundel County is where the 6,000 votes went from the Trump column to the Biden column. It was
That's
nearly a
amazing.
full 33% of the county that got switched in that. And we discovered it through a hand signature audit of the county that the Republican
is
Party.
Antrim, Michigan?
Yes. And it was the first place, Eric, where we first heard the word Dominion voting. It was in that county. It was in that flip. It was in that switch. At the time, the Secretary of State in that state said that it was a clerical error, that a clerk made the mistake, and then they shut off all discussion of it. Well, a judge said, it's okay. You guys can go in and do a forensic examination of 22 voting machines there in Antrim. That was concluded last Sunday, a week ago. We were told we would get results last Tuesday. As of Friday, we were still awaiting those results, and the Attorney General in the state of Michigan had intervened, gone to the court and said, please side with us that they may not disclose the results of those audits. Now, why is that important? Well, the lead attorney for the independent audit team says that they saw conclusive proof that it wasn't a clerical error, that there was a computer connected to the tabulation system, and that it was actually provable through the forensic audit that a computer switched the votes. And it was only through the hand recount, comparing signatures, they went to full signature recount, that they were able to establish what had really been the will of the voters in that county.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Let's look at the last 4 years. Let's look at the last 40 years. And ask the question that a former communist revolutionary asked: what is to be done? Well, that question must be approached with an adequate understanding of what happened 4 years ago in 2016. Because it was such a strange occurrence. Something that no man or woman could have predicted. How a reality TV star who was really not a member of the Manhattan jet set, who was rejected by that jet set for the longest time until a certain member of that community took him under her wing. That individual who'd never run for political office before, who toyed with the idea of being a mayor or even running for president, decided to come down those escalators with his beautiful wife. And most people, almost everyone, except, the odd caller to our show, wrote it off as a publicity stunt, as something to be laughed at, until he defeated every single, 16 or 17 GOP candidates, most of whom were just processed politicians from within the so-called swamp.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Listen to what Joe Biden said about the actions like the one we saw last night in Minneapolis to literally defund the police.
But I also don't think we should get too far ahead of ourselves on dealing with police reform in that, because they've already labeled us as being defund the police. Anything we put forward in terms of the organizational structure to change policing, which I promise you will occur, promise you. Just think to yourself and give me advice whether we should do that before January 5th, because that's how they beat the living hell out of us across the country, saying that we're talking about defunding the police. We're not. We're talking about holding them accountable.
Nothing screams holding them accountable.
So Sue just Hi, everybody. Dennis Prager here. It is Wednesday. The second hour of the Dennis Prager Show on Wednesdays is the male-female hour. It is the most honest talk about the human condition with regard to men and women. Most honest talk about men and women. And I have an interesting subject today. On occasion, I simply ask you, 90% of the male-female hours, I offer you some theories about men and women. And you react, you agree, you disagree, you amplify, whatever. Sometimes, 10%, I just throw out a question so that I can learn, and everybody else obviously listening. So here's my question. Have you been surprised by your spouse's or partner's reaction to the lockdown and COVID? You can start calling now. I want to know, in other words, did you predict how he or she would react? See, if you predicted it and you were right, then you weren't, so to speak, sucker punched. If that's the proper term here. It didn't come from left field, to use a baseball metaphor. But if out of left field, what did I say? Oh, it's not from, it's out of. You're right. No. A saying has to be correctly stated. I feel for people whose spouse sort of flipped out, got really scared, and they were surprised by that fact. Or partner. I'll include that. I hope everybody gets married, but in the meantime, in reality, a lot of people are not. So I'd be curious to know if you predicted properly. Here's an interesting one. I don't know if this is for the male-female hour, but did you predict yourself correctly? I predicted myself correctly. I predicted my wife correctly. We are both at the horrified at the lockdown extreme. Horrified. As I wrote and said in March, it's the greatest mistake in human history, not the greatest evil, and I made that clear, but just as a worldwide mistake. The number of people on the brink of starvation because of this. I have not been this angry since I began broadcasting at the ineptitude of all the elites, including right-wing elites. Israel has a right-wing government. India has a right-wing government. And they shut down their economy just as readily as left-wing governments. The world is so poorly led. I mean, when you think of the World Health Organization, it's basically run by China, among other things. Or the staggering evil of the medical boards telling doctors that they could get in trouble for giving people hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin. Both of which I am on, by the way. I practice what I preach. And along with vitamin D and zinc, I mean serious vitamin D. Vitamin D is a huge thing. The collapse of the medical profession as a profession, there are many great doctors, but the medical profession has so disgraced itself during this crisis. The epidemiologists, in my opinion, disgraced themselves since they announced that 50,000 people a year die from secondhand smoke, an enormous lie told in order to get people to stop smoking. And the Mayo Clinic, similarly, I told you this before this. Mayo Clinic, you look it up, cigars are as dangerous as cigarettes. That's as much a lie as if I were to tell you that 2 and 2 is 5. So lying comes naturally to the medical profession elites. It doesn't come naturally to your doctor necessarily. Doctors saved my lives. I always note that. I have no animus toward doctors. I have animus toward the American Medical Association, the FDA, the CDC, the NIH, and all the elites. They're corrupt. They're morally corrupt. New England Journal of Medicine just published that you should not have sex listed on birth certificates when babies are born. The New England Journal of Medicine was once a serious journal of medicine. Today it's a left-wing propaganda rag. It's the New York Times of medicine. So they've all disgraced themselves. So I predicted, back to the subject, I would have predicted my reaction to this and my wife's reaction. But are you married or living with somebody whose reaction surprised you? That's the topic of this hour. 1-8-PRAGER-776, 877-243-7776. If you're somewhat panicked by all of this, and you're married to someone who's somewhat panicked by all of this, so it's done okay for your marriage, or it's not hurt it. But if you're not panicked and your spouse is, now that I reviewed early on, this is a different question. Would you or did you predict their reaction? Interesting. See, most people, America, let me put it this way. I hate interrupting my own thought, but I'm gathering it all now. In America, life is so good for the vast majority of people that generations have, since World War II, with some exceptions, obviously, vast numbers of Americans have never truly been tested. The Depression was a test. World War II was a test. Certainly if you had a loved one serving in Korea or Vietnam, that was a test. But most Americans didn't. So this is the first nationwide test. We were not tested on 9/11. We were hurt. We were saddened, but we weren't tested. This is a test. And a vast number of Americans, in my opinion, have failed the test. They have sheep-like accepted the destruction of schooling for children, of people able to make money to feed their families. They have accepted this without question. They have accepted the idea that if a 2-year-old doesn't want to wear a mask on an airplane, she should be thrown off the plane with her family. Most Americans have accepted such a cruel, stupid, unmedically sound policy. So Americans have been spoiled. When people are not tested, and they don't work on their character, when the test comes, they will fail. That's my read. So my question, I will take your calls upon return, is, did your spouse or significant other surprise you in the way he or she reacted to COVID? That's the question. While we have a break, would you please go to my website, DennisPrager.com, and give to the Angel Fund, which gives it a Christmas present to a child who has a parent in a prison. It's one of the most beautiful charities I've ever asked you to support. Their banner is up at the top of DennisPrager.com.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Last week on Sunday, you had a Republican judge in Michigan say to the Giuliani team that a third-party audit could go forward in Anne Arundel County. Why is that important? Anne Arundel County is where the 6,000 votes went from the Trump column to the Biden column. It was nearly a full 33% of the county that got switched in that. And we discovered it through a hand signature audit of the county that the Republican Party.
Antrim, Michigan?
Yes. And it was the first place, Eric, where we first heard the word Dominion voting. It was in that county. It was in that flip. It was in that switch. At the time, the Secretary of State in that state said that it was a clerical error, that a clerk made the mistake. And then they shut off all discussion of it. Well, a judge said, it's okay. You guys can go in and do a forensic examination of 22 voting machines there in Anne Arundel. That was concluded last Sunday, a week ago. We were told we would get results last Tuesday. As of Friday, we were still awaiting those results, and the Attorney General in the state of Michigan had intervened, gone to the court and said, please side with us that they may not disclose the results of those audits. Now, why is that important? Well, the lead attorney for the independent audit team says that they saw conclusive proof that it wasn't a clerical error, that there was a computer connected to the tabulation system, and that it was actually provable through the forensic audit that a computer switched the votes. And it was only through the hand recount, comparing signatures, they went to full signature recount, that they were able to establish what had really been the will of the voters in that county.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Let's look at the last 4 years. Let's look at the last 40 years. And ask the question that a former communist revolutionary asked: what is to be done? Well, that question must be approached with an adequate understanding of what happened 4 years ago in 2016. Because it was such a strange occurrence. Something that no man or woman could have predicted. How a reality TV star who was really not a member of the Manhattan jet set, who was rejected by that jet set for the longest time until a certain member of that community took him under her wing. That individual who'd never run for political office before, who toyed with the idea of being a mayor or even running for president, decided to come down those escalators with his beautiful wife. And most people, almost everyone, except, the odd caller to our show, wrote it off as a publicity stunt, as something to be laughed at, until he defeated every single, 16 or 17 GOP candidates, most of whom were just
Okay, all, Dennis Prager here. I like his singing. What can I say? He's got a very distinctive voice. Now, everybody has a distinctive voice. That's how we recognize somebody calling us on the phone. But it does seem some are more distinctive than others, for whatever reason. Male-female hour, and I have such an interesting question. Did your spouse or significant other surprise you with his or her reaction to the lockdown and COVID? All right, Valerie in San Diego, what's the answer to my question?
Dennis, my husband surprised me so much on both ends of this thing, where at the beginning he freaked out, and that surprised me. He had me change my clothes when I got back to from the grocery store.
Hello? I hope her husband didn't yank her from the phone. Should we call the police? What happened? I'm so curious. This is one of the most interesting calls ever. I'm not kidding. Yeah, please call back, see if you can get in. So, wow. Isn't it interesting that if we can't predict? Tests are unique. That's the thing. It's not easy to know how people will react when tested. Although I would have bet everything on my wife. In my case, on my wife's reaction. If my wife had freaked out, I would have immediately scheduled an MRI, thinking, God forbid, she had a brain tumor. It would be so not normal for her to freak out about this, or me. But imagine that. Change your clothing after you went to the grocery store. That's severe, I have to say. All right, let's see what others have to say about this. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My state of Pennsylvania. Jerry, hello.
Hello, Dennis. Dennis, I'll tell you what, this question that you have is so right on the money for me. I never even thought of it. My wife, who I never would have believed, freaked out and basically just stayed in a house and still staying in a house. She was a lady that was a professional entertainer around the world, been to the White House, been all over the places. I never in my wildest dreams would have ever figured out that she would turn out to be something so pitiful, you know? And I'm saying that affectionately, but pitiful.
Well, pitiful doesn't usually come with affection, but I'm glad you are saying affectionately. just to keep us on Earth. But okay, God bless you. For the sake of his marriage, I'm not going to pursue more questions that I would have. But she freaked out. Isn't that fascinating? And he never would have predicted it. So, all right, everybody. You have no idea. We have little rubber bands that keep everything together here, and one of the rubber bands broke. I need to do an Ultimate Issues hour or some hour on the notion of test. Americans as a society have not been tested since World War II. This is the first one. And that's why I'm posing this question. Wow. All right. That was a great call, and I'm sorry about the content. All right, Valerie, you're back.
Yes, Dennis.
God willing. We were afraid your husband yanked you from the phone.
No, he's at work. He's a doctor, and that's one reason why it surprised me.
Oh, no, that's all I needed to know. Oh, they're the ones who freak out first. Oh, my God. You should have married a mail carrier. But
it was just so restrictive at first, and then by the end it was like, this is fake. This is for politics. And it just really surprised me.
So you don't have to change your clothing now when you come back from the grocery store?
Not at all.
Wait. By the way, just to give him the benefit of the doubt, are you sure there was no erotic element in having you change your clothes when you got home?
No. I promise that wasn't it. And he stopped doing it as soon as he checked all the numbers every day. And then I didn't have to change my clothes, and I didn't have to wash the groceries.
Wash the groceries.
So it just shocked me because I just went right down the middle, like, whatever, I'll be careful, but I'm not going to go to extremes. And by the end, he was just sure it was to hurt Trump in the election.
Look, you know what? I love calls that have happy endings. I'm glad. Thank you. My friend in Pittsburgh. That was one of the great moments of my radio career. Yeah. Turns out my wife was pitiful, but I say that affectionately. It was a classic. Of course he should continue to love her. I don't have the male-female hour to cause division. But sometimes I do something like this hour is for clarity and to learn about your lives. All right, everybody. Thank you there, Valerie. And let's go to Columbia, South Carolina, and Vincent. Hello, Vincent.
Hello, Dr. Prager.
Hi. I'm not a doctor, but I really appreciate the doctorate. Go ahead.
Well, I appreciate your insight. I knew my wife. We courted for about a year and a half, and I've been married for about 25 years, so there's really no surprises. She was a kindergarten teacher, and she's real sweet, but, when you're dealing with toddlers and smaller children, she would make sure they're safe and, that type of thing. So she was like total, I'm afraid I was the opposite. I'm a cynical romantic, but we get along. But the sad thing is that her only sibling has stage 4 cancer. So she is really in high protective mode, and I can respect that mainly because of her feelings, and I'm not trying to belittle her, but I'm pretty cynical about a lot of the aspects of the control freak mantra that's going on throughout the country.
All right, so you
South,
are not surprised by her reaction?
Not at all.
I got you. All right, we got a line open, folks. 1-8-PRAGER 776. Did your spouse or significant other's reaction surprise you?
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Let's look at the last 4 years. Let's look at the last 40 years. And ask the question that a former communist revolutionary asked: what is to be done? Well, that question must be approached with an adequate understanding of what happened 4 years ago in 2016. Because it was such a strange occurrence. Something that no man or woman could have predicted. How a reality TV star who was really, really not a member of the Manhattan jet set, who was rejected by that jet set for the longest time until a certain member of that community took him under her wing. That individual who'd never run for political office before, who toyed with the idea of being a mayor or even running for president, decided to come down those escalators with his beautiful wife. And most people, almost everyone, except, the odd caller to our show, wrote it off as a publicity stunt, as something to be laughed at, until he defeated every single, 16 or 17 GOP candidates, most of whom were just processed politicians from within the so-called swamp.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Listen to what Joe Biden said about the actions like the one we saw last night in Minneapolis to literally defund the police.
But I also don't think we should get too far ahead of ourselves on dealing with police reform in that, because they've already labeled us as being defund the police. Anything we put forward in terms of the organizational structure to change policing, which I promise you will occur, promise you. Just think to yourself and give me advice whether we should do that before January 5th, because that's how they beat the living hell out of us across the country, saying that we're talking about defunding the police. We're not. We're talking about holding them accountable.
Nothing screams holding them accountable better than stripping $8 million from the police department in Minneapolis, which, of course, will result in... Here's how this works. If you don't have funds for the police, if you funnel them into, I guess, mental health counselors, and good luck handling a raging, violent criminal, good luck with that if you're a mental health counselor. Maybe you can sit there and start singing folk music to somebody who's, waving a machete around. Maybe you could go back and ask them if they wet the bed when they were a child as they're, on a rampage. Oh, we're not. But this is a very important clip from Biden. You've got to know exactly his intention.
Nice one. Nice is a nice one. My friends, I really want you to have, those of you obviously celebrate it, which is the great majority of you, I want you to have a Merry Christmas. You can't just keep putting off life. This is my view. Obviously, not all of you share it. I understand people have special circumstances, but the majority of you don't have special circumstances and should enjoy life. The number of people at airports actually cheers me. I have such contempt for the medical authorities, it's almost impossible for me to fully express it in the English language. They have completely compromised themselves. It's okay to demonstrate against racism. That's a health benefit. But I give you all these other examples. Anyway, I do want you to have a wonderful Christmas. And my question on the male-female hour, which is the second hour every Wednesday, is, did your spouses or significant others' reaction to COVID and the lockdown surprise you? Would you have predicted what happened? Lily in Burbank, California. Hello.
Hi, Dennis. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you.
When I heard you say to that caller that it was severe, having to remove her clothes.
Right.
Well, my husband of 33 years, when I leave the house and I come back, I've got to go straight into the shower and shower. And I can't lock the door because he wants to make sure I'm just not running the water and sitting on the toilet waiting. That's what's happening
my
to me.
silence is because my mouth was open.
Yes, so is mine. And then finally, for my birthday, which was July 5th, I said to him, this has got to stop, or you're the one that's going to be going out to the market, to whatever, and I'm just staying home and never leaving the house again. So now I just have to take my clothes off. And I have to leave them outside.
So maybe it's just a male trick. A male tactic to get your clothes off.
That's funny.
You know, look at the bright
After
side.
33 years. No, and then to make matters worse, my oldest daughter, who happens to be 33, her husband has to do the same thing.
Oh, so she does it to her. Wait, she does it to her husband, and your husband does it to you.
Yes, because she is very close to her dad. We have 3 daughters, and she sees through his eyes, and he's a lawyer. He's retired. He's 60 years old, and I'm open-mouthed in shock. I can't believe I married this man, but I'm happy because when the big earthquake comes, I know I'm going to be the one that has to step up.
Well, that's not exactly
He's going to
consolation.
shrivel up in the.
I have to.
Fetal position.
So let me ask you a question, because this actually is a very painful call to me, and I'm sure it's a painful call to you. Yes. So my question is, would you have predicted this?
Never. Never. I went to law school. I graduated. He said, "No, hon, I'll take care of you for the rest of your life. I love you to death." I didn't even take the bar exam. Saying, okay, so he's been a wonderful husband until now. And in the house, he wears a mask. He wears a mask. So, that's my life.
Well, I hope it ends soon and that things can go back to normal. I really do. I sort of pray for you. That was a painful call for me to hear. I'm so hesitant about saying anything because the last thing I want to do is exacerbate an already fragile situation. So but on the other hand, I feel I owe it to the rest of you to offer some perspective. You wonder, do we really know people we live with for decades? Right? It's among the many reactions that I have to her call. That's clearly one of them. Wow. And there's nothing you can do, basically. People who are not using reason, by definition, can't be reasoned with. Okay, what was that, Sean? Ladies and gentlemen, relief factor, you hear a lot about on the show and other shows. There's a very good reason. Vast numbers of people take it. There's a reason vast numbers of people take it, because it works. But they have a very interesting premise and promise. If it doesn't work in 3 weeks, it probably won't work. So we'll give you a very cheap rate for 3 weeks, $19.95 plus shipping. At relieffactor.com, 800-500-8384. I take it. I can tell you on my behalf, it works. relieffactor.com.
Trending now on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Is there anybody in the business of film criticism who you admire for their craft?
Yeah, I like Joe Morgenstern with Wall Street Journal. He has liked some of my work. He has liked some of my movies. He has not liked some, and not liked me in some. But when he doesn't like it, he's constructive about it. Meaning, I'll read bad criticisms, and I can tell in the first line that, this person had it in for me before they even saw the movie. They had already started this bad review before they saw the movie. So, you know what? That's not really a criticism. That's that person's hang up. But when I can read somebody that has a good criticism, and Joe does, I think, a constructive criticism. And here's why I didn't like the movie, or here's why Matthew's performance didn't translate for me. I always learned something from it.
And is it something that you do? Will you study reviews from serious people after a film comes out in order to improve your craft? Because they're good at theirs.
Yes, I have done this. Look, obviously, it's more fun to read a good review, and obviously, when you do your work, and I feel like I did it well, and I read a good review, I think those people are smarter. But I went away 8 years ago, and I had my publicist gather every bad review that's ever been written on my performances, which is almost 50 at the time.
That's not in the book, huh?
It was no, it's not. I didn't put it in there. Maybe it can be in the next one. I went away and read every single one, and kind of learned more from the bad reviews in a way than I did from the good ones.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Huge number of Democrats who believe that the Russians changed the outcome of the election in 2016, but they're just flabbergasted that Donald Trump is daring to suggest that this election might have been rigged or might be fraudulent. No matter what the Russians may have done, I say to my friends who are listening to the program, the Democrats, no matter what the Russians have done or the Chinese have done or the Iranians have done, and clearly they've all have tried to interfere with our elections, it pales in comparison to the interference, and I put that in quotes, by the mainstream media that you guys gobble up. Hunter Biden. New York Post breaks this story days before the election. This is a bombshell. And it isn't because Hunter Biden
I'm trying to help you get into the Christmas mood, at least with the music and the constant mention. To have lost Christmas because of panic and hysteria. In most cases, some cases, I fully acknowledge, people are compromised with their immune system. Most people are not. Young people should not be deprived of Christmas, or of friends, or of school. The death rate among young people is so minuscule, it is an embarrassment to me for humanity. It's not just America. The staggering hysteria all over the world, except Sweden. So the question on the male-female hour is, could you have predicted your spouse's or significant other's response to COVID and lockdown? So far, the calls are on the depressing side, I have to admit. I'm sorry. All right, and it's James in San Antonio, Texas. Hello.
Hey, Dennis, how are you?
Okay, thank you.
First, just really appreciate everything you do. I knew my wife. My wife is a pediatrician, and I knew she would have common sense about things because it's just the way she is. But I've been surprised at the extent to which she has, been determined to, to just stand by her convictions and what she knows is right for her patients. She's seen so many patients, and their parents come in and they're not in the school, and
so what's your wife's reaction? Is it on the extreme caution side?
No, she's on the common sense side.
Oh, bless you. So would you have predicted it?
Well, she's a common sense person, but given that she's a doctor,
that's right. As soon as
so many of her colleagues have not
are panic struck, right?
Correct.
So you did good, my friend.
Oh, I did. I definitely married up. I can tell you that.
That's a good one. That's a good subject for a male-female hour. Do you think you married up? That's good. Oh, I was so worried. As soon as he said his wife is a pediatrician, I saw gloom and doom. All right, good. Happy call. We needed that, I must say. All right. Chuck, Portland, Oregon. Hello.
First-time caller. Thank you for taking the call.
Yes, sir.
My story is a little bit similar with your first three about the clothing. But instead of being sad, I think you'll get some humor out of it.
Wait, on the clothing issue, your wife had asked you when you would go out to change your clothes when you came home?
Well, we're getting there, yes.
Uh-huh.
She has a serious lung condition.
Uh-huh, okay.
So her GP, her pulmonologist, and her cardiologist all said, you're target A for COVID. So she's at home. I'm a hospital and hospice chaplain, and I'm out and about all the time. So soon after this hit, let's say, around the 25th of March, whatever, I'm called out the middle of the night, like 2 o'clock. I get home at 4, and the door is locked. And there's a note hanging on the door. It says, go in through the garage. And I thought, well, okay, I can do that. However, with the entry from the garage to the house, we usually leave locked at night. I hope she opened it. And lo and behold, she did. But number 2 on the note, first, go in through the garage. Number 2, take off all your clothes. Number 3, put them in the special container. Okay. 4, go directly to the shower. 5, you're sleeping in the guest room, buddy.
Did it say you're sleeping in the guest room, buddy, or you're paraphrasing?
She said, and you'll be sleeping in the guest room.
Okay, I was just curious if buddy was included. That's all.
Buddy was on.
So, all right. So, getting to the chase here, is this a continuing policy?
Yes, but there's one other element to the saga, and that is that 2 days later, she was at the table doing some Bible study, and I go out through the front door to go and do my thing. And lo and behold, the note's still on the door. So I took it down, brought it in, just laid it beside her, and as I turned around to leave again, she gasped. She looked at the note. She said, no. The FedEx guy came yesterday and left a package at the door, and he's reading this. Go into the garage, take off all my clothes.
That's funny. But nevertheless, the policy continues. You know, when I raised this subject at the beginning of the hour, I had no idea. No idea. And I love these hours because I'm invited into so many people's lives. I need to do an hour on the issue of test. For the record, because I'm very open about my life, for better and for worse, I had an idiosyncrasy in high school and college. I was a truly young guy. And my dear friend from that period actually commented on it as an interesting feature of my life. And I'd always say, I'm testing myself. I wonder if you can test yourself. I wonder, how do you prepare for tests? It's another very interesting question. Please, right now, go to my website and click on the Angel Tree campaign. They send a gift to a kid who has a parent in prison. What could be more beautiful for Christmas? Go to my website and click.
Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
What do you make of a city like Minneapolis, Minnesota, that slashed the police budget by millions of dollars last night? It was a unanimous vote. These kooks originally voted to abolish the police department altogether. I'm going to give you some numbers, because this is very real here in Georgia, too. How pro-police do you think Raphael Warnock is? How pro-police do you think John Ossoff is? How pro-police do you think today's Democrats are? In Minneapolis, where we have a lot of listeners, here are some numbers that I want to share with you. There have been 532 gunshot victims so far this year. 532. More than double the same period a year ago. Carjackings are up 331% from the same period last year. They've had hundreds of carjackings in the streets of Minneapolis. Violent crimes have surged to 5,100 crimes. And what did Minneapolis City Council do? Unanimously voted to slash the Minneapolis Police Department's budget by $8 million. Supposedly, they'll take the money and funnel it to other city services, including mental health teams and violence prevention programs, as they try to, quote, transform police.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
What could we have done to change the outcome? Now, what the Democrats did was to use the coronavirus as an excuse to loosen election rules, to make it easier and easier for people to vote, make it easier and easier for election fraud to be committed. And many of the things that they did were perfectly legal, underhanded but perfectly legal. Now, the previous election cycle, the Republicans lost 4 seats in Orange County, a county that used to be reliably Republican, got wiped out in Orange County, largely because the Democrats employed a tactic known as ballot harvesting. Legal, underhanded, but it allows votes to be turned in later on if you've assisted a voter in filling out.
Oh, boy. How many radio stations are playing this song? Right? Remember the feminist clamor over this? He's trying to talk her into staying over at his place? I'm just listening to the lyrics. Okay, they're doing it well, whoever these two are. They're doing it, the duet, well. Dennis Prager here, male-female hour, and what a topic. It really, unfortunately, turned out to be prescient. Have you been surprised by your spouse's or significant other's reaction to the COVID and lockdown? This is... All right, Jack in Dallas, hello.
Hey, how's it going, Dennis?
Okay, thank you.
Good, man. I really enjoyed No Safe Spaces. Watched it a couple of days ago. It's fantastic.
I appreciate that. You should all watch that movie with Adam Carolla and me. It is about freedom in America. NoSafeSpaces.com. Thank you. Go ahead.
And to my point, mine split up with me during the pandemic. It's been about 3 months now, but called me at work one day. Once she finally got a job, she'd been on unemployment for a while, and just said that she wanted to split up. The whole thing went kaput in one day.
Well, what did it have to do with the lockdown?
I have no idea. I think she was kind of stalling to get work, and the lockdown was me taking care of her, basically. So when her meal ticket was up, she had a job.
she went ahead and decided to split ways.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
that's my assumption. She never really gave me a clear answer.
I'm sorry to hear that. That's another topic. It's obviously about relationship and COVID, but it's another topic, and I appreciate your calling. Let me read you the responses that I have here, folks. Please do not hang up anybody, because I need to read it at least. Mark in West Los Angeles, California. I could not have predicted her response. She is a nurse. Leslie, Apple Valley, Minnesota. Yes, I predicted it. We couldn't be better. Michael Anderson, South Carolina. I probably would have predicted her response. She's become more aware of the media. All right. I think that's it's a great topic for another time. How have you changed in any regard over this past year? Brent in LA, I could not have predicted my family's reaction. 3 exclamation points. John in Albany, New York. Yes, I could have predicted it. Same reaction as mine. Rosalie in Wayne, New Jersey. Yes, I could have predicted his response. We are both very rational. Boy, to have the sadness of differing responses compounding the tragedy of the lockdown, it's a tough time for a lot of people. My heart goes out to you. Stay tuned. We continue.
Trending now on the Charlie Kirk Show.
Is that 2020 will really go down as the year that the most powerful people on the planet, the people that have the most money, the most influence, the most access to capital, that control the most powerful companies, they tried to make America in their image, and they largely succeeded. This is a hard thing for us to admit. It's a hard thing for us to admit that the masters of the universe, the masters of Menlo Park, if you go back in January, all the way fast forward to today, just in 2020, they pulled off a decade of transformation in 11 months. Think about where we were back in January. Critical race theory, BLM Incorporated, were considered radical movements and radical pieces of thought. Not at Google, though. At Google and at YouTube and at the masters of Menlo Park, they considered critical race theory to be a religious text. They considered Herbert Marcuse and Angela Davis to be what I would view Isaiah and Elijah, prophets of what is to come, of some form of Hegelian dystopian nightmare. The country was not as digitized. Donald Trump was experiencing one of the greatest economies in American history, if not the greatest economy in American history.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Last week on Sunday, you had a Republican judge in Michigan say to the Giuliani team that a third-party audit could go forward in Anne Arundel County. Why is that important? Anne Arundel County is where the 6,000 votes went from the Trump column to the Biden column. It was nearly a full 33% of the county that got switched in that. And we discovered it through a hand signature audit of the county that the Republican Party.
Antrim, Michigan?
Yes. And it was the first place, Eric, where we first heard the word Dominion voting. It was in that county, it was in that flip, it was in that switch. At the time, the Secretary of State in that state said that it was a clerical error, that a clerk made the mistake, and then they shut off all discussion of it. Well, a judge said, it's okay, you guys can go in and do a forensic examination of 22 voting machines there in Anne Arundel. That was concluded last Sunday, a week ago. We were told we would get results last Tuesday. As of Friday, we were still awaiting those results, and the Attorney General in the state of Michigan had intervened, gone to the court and said, please side with us that they may not disclose the results of those audits. Now, why is that important? Well, the lead attorney for the independent audit team says that they saw conclusive proof that it wasn't a clerical error, that there was a computer connected to the tabulation system, and that it was actually provable through the forensic audit that a computer switched the votes. And it was only through the hand recount, comparing signatures, they went to a full signature recount, that they were able to establish what had really been the will of the voters in that county.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Let's look at the last 4 years. Let's look at the last 40 years. And ask the question that a former communist revolutionary asked: what is to be done? Well, that question must be approached with an adequate understanding of what happened 4 years ago in 2016. Because it was such a strange occurrence. Something that no man or woman could have predicted. How a reality TV star who was really not a member of the Manhattan jet set, who was rejected by that jet set for the longest time until a certain member of that community took him under her wing. That individual who'd never run for political office before, who toyed with the idea of being a mayor or even running for president, decided to come down those escalators with his beautiful wife. And most people, almost everyone, except, the odd caller to our show, wrote it off as a publicity stunt, as something to be laughed at, until he defeated every single, 16 or 17 GOP candidates, most of whom were just process politicians from within the so-called swamp.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Mike Gallagher Show.
Listen to what Joe Biden said about the actions like the one we saw last night in Minneapolis to literally defund the police.
But I also don't think we should get too far ahead of ourselves on dealing with police reform in that, because they've already labeled us as being defund the police. Anything we put forward in terms of the organizational structure to change policing, which I promise you will occur, promise you. Just think to yourself and give me advice whether we should do that before January 5th, because that's how they beat the living hell out of us across the country, saying that we're talking about defunding the police. We're not. We're talking about holding them accountable.
Nothing screams holding them accountable better than stripping $8 million from the police.
Well, here it is, everybody. My last hour prior to Christmas. We take off tomorrow, Christmas. I have a show on tomorrow, right? It's a best of, and the best ofs are so effective that I get as many letters reacting to best ofs as I do to the regular live show. Oh, people will. This is deep into this is classic programming. So stay tuned both tomorrow and Christmas Day. But the Salem Radio Network takes off these 2 days, and I'm not going to ask people to come in. In fact, Sean threatened a duel He said he would challenge me to a duel if I came in tomorrow. No, not now. My son is visiting from Pennsylvania, and he made the motions of fencing. That's not the duel. Talking about the Aaron Burr, Alexander Hamilton type duel. You know, take your paces and then shoot. All right. Anyway, so I wanted you to know about what's happening here. So it's the last hour. Monday I'll be on. There's so much to review. Did you know that there is over $50 billion for public schools in the stimulus plan, the new stimulus bill? It's $1,000 a student, so that they could be prepared. I can't think of a bigger waste of money. I can't think of one. It is astonishing to me the endless pouring of money into public schools for no good reason. Give parents all that money. What is it per student? Do you know what is it in L.A. or in America generally? What is the?
It's between, depending on the city.
Yeah. 10 to 15,000. You know how much good stuff you could get taught to your kid? Or imagine just 2 kids. It's $30,000. How about 5 kids? So that would, what did you say again? What was I multiplying? 10 to 15. So let's say $75,000 for 5 kids. I could bring in the finest lecturers on any given subject. You could hire people to help teach your kids and actually teach them. Oh, well, that's how much is going to the Kennedy Center? Why do all of these bills give the Kennedy Center billions of dollars? The crushing of orchestras that is taking place on 2 levels, financially and ideologically. Oh, we don't want to play all these white composers. Do you know that they're actually saying that? All these males. Philadelphia Orchestra dedicated the 250th anniversary of Beethoven's birth this past year to commissioning, I think, 13 symphonies from female composers. Do I care if a composer is female or male? Do you think it ever occurs to me? What do I care? I don't even care if the composer is an anti-Semite and I'm a Jew. I listen to Wagner. If you start judging art by the artist's life, art is dead. It's over. What is the artist's life? What does that have to do with it? Does the music move me, touch me, inspire me? Is it beautiful? Is it angry? A whole host of emotions. But is the artist male, female, white, or black, hetero, or gay? You think I care? When I listen to Tchaikovsky, you think, this is great. I mean, the man was a homosexual. Oh, fantastic. Now I appreciate his 4th symphony even more. The age of stupidity in which we live. Hey, here's an interesting thing for you, which if this doesn't blow your mind, nothing will. Los Angeles Times, why a negative COVID test doesn't clear you for holiday gatherings. The corruption of the medical establishment is so deep. Amid growing signs that many people are not heeding warnings to avoid Christmas gatherings and travel, I love you all for doing it. I just flew 2 days ago from Florida. I love those of you who are doing this. You want to live. You're not an animal. The purpose of animal life is to live. The purpose of human life is to live meaningfully. Grovel, baby, grovel. That's the Biden message. Grovel. Be a wimp like me. Hey, put on, Sean. Put on the great Vice President Biden during, what was it, the SARS flu? What was it? Swine flu. This is, it's amazing that I have this recording. There you go. That was during the swine flu. The guy's a wimp. He's a panic-struck wimp. I don't want a wimp for a president. Wimps hate the strong. That's just the way it is. The unhappy hate the happy. It's the way the world works. They're really angry. You're not listening to the CDC. What is it? The CD, the NIH, the FBI, the FDA, the TLB, the RGK, and the ZZT. You're not listening to them. You actually want to enjoy life? Screw you. We got to make this country the Soviet Union. We should play the, whenever I mention the authorities, we should play the Soviet national anthem. Союзные Рушими, Республик Свободны. Великая California. Amid growing signs that many people are not heeding warnings to avoid Christmas gatherings. Oh, Fauci, he can't wait. He's counting the days for the Biden presidency. Then he is emperor of the country. Yep, they're trading in the national anthem for this. Callados. You got to admit it's a great melody. You got to give totalitarians credit when they deserve it. Yeah, I feel for those of you who fled the Soviet Union. You never thought you'd be hearing it here as a possible candidate for replacement of the national anthem. Comrade Newsom and, the whole Bolshevik party called the Democrats. Amid growing signs that many people are not heeding warnings to avoid Christmas gatherings and travel, some people are getting COVID-19 tests in hope of being cleared to enjoy the holidays in groups.
Enjoy the holidays? Come on. Nobody enjoys.
Oh, yeah, you're right. No, enjoy the holidays in and of itself. Can't think of a worse sin. This happened before Thanksgiving with disastrous results. Many attended holiday events and got sick, causing the coronavirus to spread uncontrolled, filling hospitals and contributing to a worsening surge. Los Angeles County Public Health Director Barbara Ferrer, woman who makes hundreds of thousands of dollars and puts people who make $50,000 into bankruptcy. Congratulations, Barbara. Urged people not to believe that a negative test result means it's safe to attend or host a holiday gathering. Do you understand that? So is the test worthless?
Yeah.
By the time you get a negative test result, you may no longer be negative. And even if you have no symptoms, you can easily infect others. Is that a fact? Do the asymptomatic truly infect others? Is that science? Sometimes people can test negative even though they are actually infected because the virus hasn't yet replicated to detectable levels. Relying on tests. So this is now the message to us. Ready? Even when people get vaccines, they should still wear masks. And even if you test negative, it doesn't mean anything. That's why our darkest days are ahead of us. So here's your national anthem, America.
Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
is that 2020 will really go down as the year that the most powerful people on the planet, the people that have the most money, the most influence, the most access to capital, that control the most powerful companies, they tried to make America in their image, and they largely succeeded. This is a hard thing for us to admit. It's a hard thing for us to admit that the masters of the universe, the masters of Menlo Park, if you go back in January, all the way fast forward to today, just in 2020, they pulled off a decade of transformation in 11 months. Think about where we were back in January. Critical race theory, BLM Incorporated were considered radical movements and radical pieces of thought. Not at Google, though. At Google and at YouTube and at the masters of Menlo Park, they considered critical race theory to be a religious text. They considered Herbert Marcuse and Angela Davis to be what I would view Isaiah and Elijah, prophets of what is to come, of some form of Hegelian dystopian nightmare. The country was not as digitized. Donald Trump was experiencing one of the greatest economies in American history, if not the greatest economy in American history.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Last week on Sunday, you had a Republican judge in Michigan say to the Giuliani team that a third-party audit could go forward in Anne Arundel County. Why is that important? Anne Arundel County is where the 6,000 votes went from the Trump column to the Biden column. It was nearly a full 33% of the county that got switched in that. And we discovered it through a hand signature audit of the county that the Republican Party.
Antrim, Michigan?
Yes. And it was the first place, Eric, where we first heard the word Dominion voting. It was in that county, it was in that flip, it was in that switch. At the time, the Secretary of State in that state said that it was a clerical error, that a clerk made the mistake, and then they shut off all discussion of it. Well, a judge said, it's okay, you guys can go in and do a forensic examination of 22 voting machines there in Anne Arundel. That was concluded last Sunday, a week ago. We were told we would get results last Tuesday. As of Friday, we were still awaiting those results, and the Attorney General in the state of Michigan had intervened, gone to the court and said, please side with us that they may not disclose the results of those audits. Now, why is that important? Well, the lead attorney for the independent audit team says that they saw conclusive proof that it wasn't a clerical error, that there was a computer connected to the tabulation system, and that it was actually provable through the forensic audit that a computer switched the votes. And it was only through the hand recount, comparing signatures, they went to full signature recount, that they were able to establish what had really
This is a very long introduction, so I was waiting, but I can't wait that long. All right. Oh, good stuff. All right, everybody. Dennis Prager here. What did you say? A Mad Russian's Christmas? I like it. All right, everybody. Dennis Prager here. My final hour before the Christmas vacation of the next 2 days, and but again, tune into the show. We have very special stuff from the past. But I do want to remind you, please, to make a contribution so that a kid who has a parent in prison gets a gift. I said yesterday it's a mitzvah Mitzvah is a great word. It should be in everyone's vocabulary. It has spurred me, that phrase has spurred me to do things I did not want to do all of my life. It's a mitzvah. It's a combination of good deed and commandment. It's a mitzvah to give to the angel tree. The banner is on the top of my homepage, DennisPrager.com. All right, 1-8-PRAGER-776, Westchester County, New York. Kirk. Hello, Kirk.
Hello, Dennis. It's good to talk to you again. Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
So I started showing, it's a long story, I'll keep it short. I started showing telltale symptoms of COVID 2 weeks ago Friday. Tested positive middle of the following week. End of that week, I got a call from one of those New York State contact tracers. They gave me no indication that this would happen, but after the call, on which I tried to give them as little information as possible, I received an email that read like a court order about my isolation, when I need to return to my address, even to the extent where it was saying what I can and can't do inside my own home.
Like what? What can't you do in your own home?
Use separate, the things that anyone with half a brain would do during this time. Use separate silverware, wipe down surfaces, things like that. But it gets even better. It's been 10 days since I tested positive or whatever. I should be able to leave now, which I've made it a point to do when I felt up to it anyway. And I can't get a hold of the Department of Health to get a release letter to go back to work, to access things in my apartment building, things like that.
So is your is your employer demanding that letter before you can come back?
They said it would be nice to have. So I would
all right, so
that if I
you know
don't
what?
have it
Tell
soon-
the guy you tried it. You did your, what is it, 2 weeks? You did your 2 weeks and then go back to work. Listen, Merry Christmas, Kirk. Thank you very much. Are you ready for the next doozy? A law professor from Washington and Lee University, a name that is whose days are numbered, believes the votes of black Americans should be counted twice in U.S. elections. So here's a question. By the way, it's an interesting theory. What if you're half black and half white? Do you get 1.5 votes? It would seem right. What if you're a quarter black? 1.25. Brandon Hasbrook, who teaches criminal law, race relations law, and critical theory, writes in The Nation that the core problem is the Electoral College. How fair is it, for example, that primarily white Wyoming gets 3 electors, while 58% black Atlanta gets no electors? What does that even mean? Atlanta has no electors? It's part of Georgia. Georgia has electors. Okay. The professor says the Electoral College was critical to the preservation of slavery and its continuation by other means. Really? Look, they want to get rid of the Electoral College because they want the popular vote to be the only vote that matters. Well, what happened, among other things, is that candidates for president would never set foot in Wisconsin or Michigan. They would just be in California and New York. Basically, they wouldn't even have to campaign because California and New York would essentially determine the election. That's what they want. The votes of African Americans aren't the only ones that should be counted twice. I didn't see that. I highlighted it and forgot I highlighted it. Hasbrook says those of Native Americans should too. In fact, those of anyone... No, 3 times. I thought you were serious. That's true. Native Americans... Look, blacks suffered horribly, but they survived. Indians died. So That's right. 3 votes would make sense. Those of anyone who has suffered similar disenfranchisement should be double counted. Professor Hasbrook also wrote an article for the Washington and Lee Law Review online titled White Saviors, the abstract of which states, quote, "It is time for Washington and Lee University to drop both George Washington and Robert E. Lee from the university name." There you go, indeed. Scott Atlas, who served under President Trump from August through November as special advisor. Is he an epidemiologist? No, I didn't think so. Was it radiologist, was it? Check, would you check? Scott Atlas. The media's politicization of COVID has proved deadly. Puts Americans' freedoms at risk. All 50 states independently directed and implemented their own pandemic policies. In every case, governors and local officials were responsible for on-the-ground choices. Every business limit, school closing, shelter-in-place order, and mask requirement. No policy on any of these issues was set by the federal government, except those involving federal property and employees. That's why I don't understand. He promises us 100 days of mask mandate. But what power does the president have to tell me I have to cover my face? For the record, ladies and gentlemen, I do not wear a mask outdoors. And I am awaiting. This is what I do outdoors, by the way, just to let you know. If I pass someone, for example, leaving the building, if I pass someone walking in who is undoubtedly going to be masked, I give them a big hello, a big friendly hello, and every single one has responded with a friendly hello, just for the record. But should it happen that somebody says, hey, fella, hey, buddy, or worse, why aren't you wearing a mask? This is outdoors. I have an answer. Because I am rational.
Trending now on the Eric Metaxas Show.
Last week on Sunday, you had a Republican judge in Michigan say to the Giuliani team that a third-party audit could go forward in Anne Arundel County. Why is that important? Anne Arundel County is where the 6,000 votes went from the Trump column to the Biden column. It was nearly a full 33% of the county that got switched in that. And we discovered it through a hand signature audit of the county that the Republican Party.
Antrim, Michigan?
Yes. And it was the first place, Eric, where we first heard the word Dominion voting. It was in that county, it was in that flip, it was in that switch. At the time, the Secretary of State in that state said that it was a clerical error, that a clerk made the mistake, and then they shut off all discussion of it. Well, a judge said, it's okay, you guys can go in and do a forensic examination of 22 voting machines there in Anne Arundel. That was concluded last Sunday, a week ago. We were told we would get results last Tuesday. As of Friday, we were still awaiting those results, and the Attorney General in the state of Michigan had intervened, gone to the court and said, please side with us that they may not disclose the results of those audits. Now, why is that important? Well, the lead attorney for the independent audit team says that they saw conclusive proof that it wasn't a clerical error, that there was a computer connected to the tabulation system, and that it was actually provable through the forensic audit that a computer switched the votes. And it was only through the hand recount, comparing signatures, they went to full signature recount, that they were able to establish what had really been the will of the voters in that county.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Let's look at the last 4 years. Let's look at the last 40 years and ask the question that a former communist revolutionary asked: what is to be done? Well, that question must be approached with an adequate understanding of what happened 4 years ago in 2016. Because it was such a strange occurrence. Something that no man or woman could have predicted. How a reality TV star who was really not a member of the Manhattan jet set, who was rejected by that jet set for the longest time until a certain member of that community took him under her wing. That individual who'd never run for political office before, who toyed with the idea of being a mayor or even running for president, decided to come down those escalators with his beautiful wife. And most people, almost everyone, except, the odd caller to our show, wrote it off as a publicity stunt, as something to be laughed at, until he defeated every single, 16 or 17 GOP candidates, most of whom were just process.
You're not crazy about this? Say it again. Oh! I was tapping my feet. I was so into it. What does it mean if we make it through December? Is he talking to his girlfriend? What does it mean? Oh, it's about COVID, and he wrote it in 74, 46 years ago. Guy's a giant. Well, according to Joe Biden, we're not going to make it through January, February, March, etc. Things are going to get worse, darker. I'm leveling with you. God, when he talks with the mask on, I can't tell you how unleaderly-like I find that. But, of course, half the country thinks, oh, good, he's modeling safety. Right. Yeah. Okay. This is the man who wanted us to not board an airplane while he was vice president during the swine flu. Okay. All right, let's go to Joe in Santa Monica, California, People's Republic of Santa Monica.
Dennis, how are you? I just read what you had to say about coming home from Florida. I've got tears in my eyes. I'm a Californian. I was born here, and I've been listening to you since you spoke on the radio the first time. I'm sure I've listened to you in that first year.
Wow.
We appreciate you, Dennis.
Thank you.
And Dennis, we do not want you to leave California.
Why?
I know that Ben
No, I'm not kidding. Why?
Why?
Yeah.
Because we need to stay here and we need to fight this thing. We need to. I remember when you said that having Trump as our president turned us. It changed the place. Now we're strengthened by having that powerful guy who had a big mouth, but having him as our president. And we have to fight here in California. And when I hear great people, great conservatives are leaving, it saddens me.
No, you have a right to be sad. I'm not leaving yet. And I made that clear. But it's the first time that I'm even entertaining the idea. Look, the gist of my article, and God bless you, I hear your heart and your mind. I was in Florida for 5 days over this past weekend, and I gave some speeches, and I saw my son and grandchildren there. And I went bowling, as I write in the article. I went bowling with my grandkids. Bowling. Then arcade playing. And we ate inside of restaurants. In the state with the most old people in the country. Only Maine proportionately has more old people than Florida. I have no idea why, but I just want to be accurate. There should be massive death in Florida, given the number of retirees living there. My beloved Aunt Chippy just died there at a nursing home. It kills me because the cruelty of making these people die alone. As I mentioned in my fireside chat coming out next week, science, follow the science. You know what science says? Let people be isolated. Let them die alone. Science is heartless. Okay? I follow wise people. The crowd that says follow the science is lying to you because they don't follow the science. They tell you men give birth, men menstruate. They tell you that the earth is doomed every 12 years. They tell you that that hydroxychloroquine is dangerous. These people follow science. The thousands of scientists who said it's a health benefit to demonstrate during COVID against racism follow science. The left follows science as much as it cares about blacks. Okay? Is that sufficient? They use science like they use blacks. That's the state that it is. All right. 1-8-PRAGER-776. A lot of people are calling in. What about the hospitals overcrowding? I don't believe the press. I think they're lying to me, okay? Because whenever I call up a hospital, they say they're doing okay. Every couple of weeks, I check in with one of the biggest hospitals in Houston, Houston Methodist, and a physician there says, we're doing fine. We're at the same rate of ICU capacity as we were last year. The press lies to you whenever it writes something. Get it? Then you know the truth. Like Pravda, people knew it lied. RidUZone.com is an amazing product. It's composed of what you already produce, OEA, a molecule that tells your brain you're full. Eat less, you'll be a healthier human being. A lot of you have had tremendous results with this. A 30-day guarantee of satisfaction, available at RidUZone.com, and with the promo code Dennis, you immediately get 30% off. RidUZone.com, RidUZone.com, promo code Dennis.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Huge number of Democrats who believe that the Russians changed the outcome of the election in 2016, but they're just flabbergasted that Donald Trump is daring to suggest that this election might have been rigged or might be fraudulent. No matter what the Russians may have done, I say to my friends who are listening to the program, the Democrats, no matter what the Russians have done or the Chinese have done or the Iranians have done, and clearly they've all have tried to interfere with our elections, it pales in comparison to the interference, and I put that in quotes, by the mainstream media that you guys gobble up. Hunter Biden. New York Post breaks this story days before the election. This is a bombshell. And it isn't because Hunter Biden did anything illegal necessarily. It's because Joe Biden has for months denied knowing anything whatsoever about his son's business, let alone that he met with any of his son's colleagues, business associates. And it turns out Tony Bobulinski, the longtime business associate of Hunter, who broke with Hunter, goes public and says he met with Joe Biden for some time. And also worked with Joe Biden's brother. And when he said to Joe Biden's brother, look, isn't this kind of dicey for you to be involved in something like this? Joe Biden's brother said, we have plausible deniability. So this story broke. And what did the mainstream media say? They said this is Russian disinformation. You have the CEO of Twitter suppressing the story, admitting he suppressed the story. And he admitted they shouldn't have done it. But the story was spiked.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Charlie Kirk Show.
The rich are richer. Google and Facebook are more powerful than ever before. Normal people have had their voice suppressed. Anywhere between 250 to 275 to 300,000 people have died from the Chinese coronavirus. The lockdowns have killed dreams, ambitions, and human beings through suicide and other means. How did all of this happen? Aristotle famously said that we are the speaking beings. If we do not have the ability to speak and communicate, we are no different than the animals of the wild. Aristotle was a scientist. Some would call him an empiricist. It's not a perfect categorization, but he cared about what
Hi, everybody. You're listening to the Dennis Prager Show, telling you about how the press lies because they're not interested in truth. They're interested in results. Can they manipulate you in the direction that they want? Right? So everybody, all the COVID deaths. Listen to this from The Hill. The Hill is liberal. It's a major website. Just now. Overdose deaths outnumber COVID-19 deaths more than 3-1 in San Francisco. I'm sure it's true in Philadelphia. I'm sure it's true in Chicago. I'm sure it's true in virtually every major city. More than 3 times as many people, and this is young folks. COVID is overwhelmingly really old folks. So young folks are dying at a probably 10-1 ratio over young folks dying from COVID because of overdose. But no one cares because it ain't dramatic and you can't score political points with it and you can't shut people's lives down with this despicable, evil, vile, selfish, destructive lockdown, which I have said from the beginning. However, some don't agree with me. We go to them. Jim in Los Angeles, thank you for calling.
Yes, hi, how are you?
I'm well. My country isn't.
Okay, let me preface my comments by saying that I've been a Republican since 1972. And I haven't voted for a Democrat. Well, I did vote for one Democrat, Edwin Demesky, in the primary, and I haven't since. The mask situation is you wear a mask. We don't know if it doesn't spread the virus, okay? So why not wear it just in case? And secondly, why not wear it because other people are concerned and maybe afraid and so it's being self-centered not to do that. You're saying, well, it's my right not to wear a mask. Well, what about other people's rights? And I wear a mask. And
do you wear a mask when you walk? Do you wear a mask when you walk alone outdoors?
I wear a mask when somebody else approaches me outdoors.
So what do you think? What do you think of people? All right. Hold on. I let you speak, and I will let you speak more. I really just want to understand where you're coming from. What do you think of people who wear masks while walking alone outdoors? Do you think that they're a little nutty? Or do you have any judgment at all about that behavior?
Okay, I do. I don't. I think it's you're not gonna spread the virus. I don't think you're not gonna get the virus if you're walking outside by yourself and nobody is around you. Now, I carry a mask with me when I walk, and then if I see somebody approaching, I'll put the mask on.
And the reason you will is to make them feel good. I'm not arguing with you. I promise, so don't feel defensive. It's not that you really believe that passing someone outdoors might, with any likelihood, will transmit the disease, but you want to honor their fear.
Exactly. I mean, that's the way I feel.
Right. So, all right. I respect you for that. I just want you to know I don't have your reaction. I want to advertise to as many people as possible that I, a senior citizen, do not share your fear. And I think that's a good thing. Also, you and I have a different view of the price paid by mask wearing. I am deeply morally opposed to the veil in Muslim societies because it dehumanizes women. The mask dehumanizes every single mask wearer. The society pays an enormous price. Children who haven't seen a face growing up now for the last 9 months are paying a social price that is enormous. So I don't honor people who wear masks irrationally. I won't join them in degrading society by hiding my face.
Well, I don't think that's really a great comparison with wearing a veil.
How is it different? How is a mask and a veil different? No. I want to know how they're different.
They're different because women, not just wearing a veil. There's other.
No. There are women who just wear a veil. I'm not talking about a burqa. I'm talking about a veil. Give me one difference between a veil and a mask.
Because you're respecting other people with a mask. When you're wearing
No. You're talking about motives. There is no difference in society. A hidden face is a hidden face. I don't know why this is complex.
Dennis, you're talking about a deadly disease.
Okay, if you don't want to talk to me, you're not following my logic, and it's painful to me. You have no difference between a veil and a mask. The only thing is you defend the mask. That's a separate issue. But there is no difference socially. The mask is as dehumanizing as the veil. If you can't see that, then I give up, and I thank you and wish you a Merry Christmas. The only time I get frustrated in any disagreement is when the logic, if we don't have shared logic, it's pointless. There's no difference between a veil and a mask. The fact that you think a mask is necessary is irrelevant to my point. Completely irrelevant. I don't understand why that's not obvious. If the veil dehumanizes, the mask dehumanizes. If you think it's a good thing for kids to grow up not seeing a face for 9 months because of the damn disease, fine. But don't think it comes without a price. That's the liberal brain. They never ask what is the price paid because it's an immature mind. Sorry, it always has been. That's why Tom Sowell wrote his magnificent magnum opus. What is it again about they never think about the effects, huh? Stage one thinking. That's it. Oh, there's a disease. I don't care if there's a price that kids never go to school. I don't care if there's a price that people never see another person's face. I don't care if there's a price that millions of Americans are unemployed. I don't care if there's a price about millions of Americans losing their business. There's a disease. That's it. Then the beauty of having a leftist position, even if you're a Republican, is you don't have to think.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Let's look at the last 4 years. Let's look at the last 40 years. And ask the question, that a former communist revolutionary asked, "What is to be done?" Well, that question must be approached with an adequate understanding of what happened 4 years ago in 2016. Because it was such a strange occurrence. Something that no man or woman could have predicted. How a reality TV star who was really not a member of the Manhattan jet set, who was rejected by that jet set for the longest time until a certain member of that community took him under her wing. That individual who'd never run for political office before, who toyed with the idea of being a mayor or even running for president, decided to come down those escalators with his beautiful wife. And most people, almost everyone, except, the odd caller to our show, wrote it off as a publicity stunt, as something to be laughed at, until he defeated every single, 16 or 17 GOP candidates, most of whom were just processed politicians from within the so-called swamp.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube today. Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
Listen to what Joe Biden said about the actions like the one we saw last night in Minneapolis to literally defund the police.
But I also don't think we should get too far ahead of ourselves on dealing with police reform in that, because they've already labeled us as being defund the police. Anything we put forward in terms of the organizational structure to change policing, which I promise you will occur, promise you. Just think to yourself and give me advice whether we should do that before January 5th, because that's how they beat the living hell out of us across the country, saying that we're talking about defunding the police. We're not.
Oh, there's another rendition of this. Or rendition. You know what? I'm not going to even announce what you just said to me. Sean would be fired if I repeated what he said in my earphones. By the way, the PragerU video this week is The Amazing History of Christmas. Really, really worth seeing. Got to admit, I'm trying to keep it alive. Enjoying life. Respiratory therapist, registered, I might add, in Spring, Texas. Jeff. Hello, Jeff.
Hi, Dennis. So I have proof that masks don't work. Physical proof, because it's physics. So masks mimic two of the worst diseases that you can get in your lungs, which are restrictive lung disease and COPD, or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. That's first. Okay?
Yep.
They mimic those, so they make them worse. So if you have somebody who has COPD, and 175 million Americans do, they're going to be made sicker by the mask. Restrictive disease, I don't have the numbers on it, but it's a smaller number, but there are quite a few Americans who have restrictive disease. So we know about this disease, COVID-19, that it has respiratory consequences. But what we are being told on the surface is that the respiratory consequences, but not being told that it's a vascular disease for the most part. The area of the lungs that is vascular
is the alveoli, or the farthest reaches of the lung. So we normally take a breath and the air will mix in our lungs, right?
Is there anything I could... All
difficult.
right, we don't have a lot of time, so let me ask you, is there any place I could go on the internet to see a layman's analysis of the dangers of masks?
I don't know if there's anything that's been produced.
All right, we need to produce that. It's hard for me to believe that all day long breathing in your own air is a good thing. Maybe it is, or maybe it's a non-issue. In any event, my dear friends, obviously can't take any more calls. I wish you from the bottom of my heart a Merry Christmas. I wish you from the bottom of my heart that you make an effort to have a Merry Christmas. Keep the music on. Go to friends or have friends over. Take vitamin D. Take zinc. Get a hydroxychloroquine. We have a link on the website to doctors who can help you find a doctor who will prescribe it. But you have to live life, my friends. You can't live scared. The thing that God says to the human being most in the Bible are the words, fear not. They're good advice. Okay, everybody. A Merry Christmas to you from all of us at the Dennis Prager Show.